Hey, what's up, guys? So in this video, we're going to be talking about toxic masculinity. So basically, I'm back. I'm back on YouTube with a very different perspective. I've gone through some life things. I won't discuss that in this video. Maybe that'll be for another video. But I just want to let you know, you please subscribe to the channel. Put comments if you like this video. But let's get into it. Let's talk about toxic masculinity, right? So a few months back, I did a Google search on what toxic masculinity is, and the APA, the American Psychological Association, defined it as follows: toxic masculinity is basically masculinity that is toxic to the world around it. Pretty much, that's what the definition kind of means. Everybody interprets it differently. Here's the thing: there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There is the lack of masculinity and masculinity, right? So there's the lack of masculinity in the world today, right? That's just a fact, right? A guy, so there's two main guys. There's three, right? In the red pill community. If you don't know what the red pill community is, the red pill community is basically the counter movement to feminism, right? And I may talk about feminism in this video, but you got three guys. Well, the first guy that really filled the void, well, four guys. The first guy that filled the void for masculinity in the culture was probably Kevin Samuels, right? Kevin Samuels, if you guys don't know him, he was a guy, rest in peace. He was a guy that was an image consultant. He would have women on his show, mostly black women, sometimes white women, and he would just kind of give them, advice on, different things that they could change, right? He was an image consultant, right? But what a lot of people don't know is that as hard as he was on the women, he was on the men. The second guy was Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson got his start. One of his videos went viral going against a student that, he was basically talking about masculinity. He's a psychologist, right? He's very much a psychologist, and he kind of got into writing books. I think he has 12 Rules of Success. Really good book. I read parts of it. The third guy obviously is the most popular. He's been the most popular talked about guy. I made videos about him. His name is Andrew Tate. I've watched a lot of his videos, and he says some great things and some things he may be off on. And then the fourth guy will probably be Elliot Holtz. Now he was the guy back on YouTube where, and I made some videos about Elliot on here too. He was more or less, he talked about masculine and making men strong again. And then I had the fifth guy. He passed away in 2020. It was Stephen Aryan, right? He wrote Hard Times, Create Strong Men. He wrote The Oracle. All these books on masculinity, right? And Elliot wrote Make Men Strong Again. So where do we go from here, right? What is toxic masculinity, right? Toxic masculinity, there is no such thing. It's a lack of masculinity in the culture, right? So you're seeing a lot of men just kind of become aware of the things that are happening with not just women, but just with in life in general, right? So they're really just focusing on themselves. As I'm in my early 30s, going into my mid 30s, and I can definitely tell you that masculinity has changed over time. Jack Donovan talks about it in his book, The Way of Men, and it says, the quote is basically something along the lines of, where do men go from here as far as what is masculinity given to us, right? Because the religious scholars give us a certain form of masculinity. The rich man, gives us a certain form of masculinity. And so masculinity, for me is basically, it comes down to a couple factors, and I'm going to list them here right now. The four essential pillars of masculinity, right? So physical presence. You have to have a physical presence about yourself. This is why I tell guys to go into the gym, to lift weights, right? It doesn't really matter what kind of weightlifting you do, but you need to have a physical presence about yourself, right? You need to carry yourself and speak articulately on the things that you want to have in your life, right? That is masculinity. That is physical presence. The second thing is emotional control. There's a lot of men in prison right now that do not have emotional control. They let their emotions get the best of them, and they are in prison because they let their emotions get the best of them in a conflict situation or something like that. You need to have emotional control. I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel your emotions, but you need to look at that emotion and say, okay, how do I break through to the other side without hurting this person, right? There's box breathing. Look, I get it. You know, sometimes people piss you off, right? You know, you just want to fight them. But I can tell you from experience, from my time in the Marine Corps, my time in security, my time as a bouncer, my time in executive protection, that you don't know what that person is carrying, right? The most recent situation is obviously with that Austin Metcalf situation, right? So, and I'm not talking about that, but that's just a situation where it's like, if that young man had emotional control, that other young man would be here, right? The third thing is a spiritual foundation. You want to have a relationship with God, right? And this is probably the most important, because God is going to be the one that gives you your purpose. I am a Christian, so Jesus gives me my purpose, right? My purpose has changed overall throughout time. And I live from a biblical standpoint and foundation of masculinity. But you need to have a spiritual foundation. It doesn't have to be Christianity. If you're a Muslim, you could have the Muslim God. If you're Jewish, it doesn't matter, right? As long as you have a spiritual foundation. It's interesting. The first step of becoming a Freemason, I'm not a Freemason, but I studied it. And the first step of becoming a Freemason is just acknowledging that there's a creator, acknowledging that there's some higher power that you know that there's that's different than you, right? So just knowing that, right? Whether it's the universe or whatever. The fourth thing, I'm sorry, is financial abundance, right? So how this works, right? So financial abundance is basically taking the money that you have, saving it, investing it, and creating wealth for you and your posterity, right? So if you're a man that wants to get married, if you're a man that wants to have children, if you're a man that just, you know, likes to have good things, you're going to have to be financially abundant. So this video is probably going to be more about 4 pillars of masculinity more than it is about toxic masculinity. But I just want to get that out there, that you need to have these 4 foundations. If you don't have these 4 foundations, you're going to struggle, right, as a man. And these things need to be understandable. And the 5th thing that you probably want to have is a daily walk with yourself, right? Just kind of going through, what am I up to today, right? You know what I mean? So because you can increase the testosterone as much as you can. You can push the barriers of success as much as you can. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to be one-on-one with yourself. So this pretty much wraps up this video. Like I said, I'm coming back on YouTube. So yeah, this is going to be the 4 pillars of success of masculinity. But, you know, masculinity is not necessarily toxic. Masculinity is being redefined by the powers that be, so to speak. And so you have to know what masculinity is. Masculinity is tribal. Most of the time, masculinity was derived by the tribe and the men and the elders that held that tribe, right? Whether it's the Romans, the Greeks, if you go to African cultures, Asian cultures, masculinity, whether it's the samurai or whatever, masculinity was defined by the culture, right? So it was not defined by a feminist mindset. So, and I'll leave you with this. This is not a red pill movement, right? This is not a red pill anything. This is masculinity at its core, and you are a man. So I hope this helps. I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. God bless. And I'll see you in the next video.